episode of the Success Grid podcast with your host Hussein Talib. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the true meaning of success. My guest in this episode, his name is Zachary Colman. Zach is the founder of Creative, a successful, great focused branding agency, and an expert in personal corporate branding. He has helped countless professional athletes, personal brands, and athletic driven corporate brands build mindsets and help them build their brands around a community. Zach, I am so glad that you are joining me for this one here on the Success Grid podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome to have you here. So, this is the Success Grid podcast. We are going to be talking about success. What does it mean? The true meaning of success. So, this could be argumentative, I guess. So, big topic means a lot of things to a lot of people. But first things first, what does success means to you? And what do you see other people have misconceptions around success? Let's start from there.
Yeah. I think that's overall it's going to be a tricky question, right? Is because I think that every single human being on this planet has certain milestones that they go through in life where success can pivot. Me myself, I grew up, not feeling very seen and heard by the people around me. And so as I continued to grow my business, I think I'm not going to say fell into the trap, but I kind of got to the point where I had like an identity crisis. I got to a point where I was like, the true meaning of success for me is I have to reach it to that million. I have to reach it to that 2 million. I have to reach it to 10 million, 20 million. And I think it's very common, and it's still something that a lot of people thrive for. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with thriving to make a good top line. But I've kind of got to the point where I saw this correlation between business development and where businesses are with mindset issues. What got me to where I was no longer getting me to where I needed to be. I have 2 young children. I have a third one that's going to be born here in, just funny enough, like 3 days. And that, with the correlation with me being in a valley of death period in the business, I was clashing with myself. And I was like so much in the office. I was working 9-10 hours a day, trying to do the whole, hustle culture type atmosphere. Like, I have to beat my competitors. I have to do this. And I had to really put it on myself to kind of look at myself and be like, why am I thriving for this invisible number of, and it came back to that feeling of being unseen and unheard, right? I had this premise of thinking that, oh, me being able to have a bank account with multiple millions of dollars in it is somehow going to prove to everyone else that I made it when they didn't see me when I was younger, right? And so I think, like you said, it's controversial because I think a lot of people still somewhat are in that mindset. And there's nothing wrong if you're lower class or you're middle class and you're still thriving to move up in the game, but within the business or what you're doing. But at the end of the day, I love my family, and I'd rather work 5 hours a day and work smart than, work 9-10 hours a day. And funny enough, it was those KPIs of going back and looking at myself and working on myself that actually are helping me make more money, because now I'm not, burnt out all the time. I'm looking at different things that are going to help me make it to the next level, and not just trying to sit behind a desk all day and grasp at every little possible thing to try to make me happy.
Mm, cool. So now, usually some people, or not some people, a lot of people, when say someone is successful, usually refer to money, like you're talking here about also, and at the same time, they say this person is lucky and that she is lucky and he's lucky. Do you think luck exists in success?
I do. Um, I mean, there's always a little bit of luck, but at the end of the day, it comes down to this: it's connection. And so, you hear a lot of people will say something along the lines of, If you want to make $1 million, you have to put yourself around the people that make $1 million. You want to make 10 million, you have to put yourself around those people. But the funny thing is the way that people evolve and change and grow is that they may not just be ready to connect with those types of people yet. And so I'm all about like, hey, like, when you start connecting with yourself more and you start understanding who you are and what you truly want out of your life, you're going to start attracting people that have a very like-minded personality. So, and that comes around the things you do, the actions you take, the way you act. It's basically fundamentals of branding, right? Like, how do you work on yourself to make sure that your meaning of success, and then you will start connecting with those types of people. So when you hear about luck and you hear about people saying, "Oh, like I got lucky enough to be get connected with this person and they liked me." Well, it's because of all the wisdom and the way that you connect with that person is probably going to allow the situation to arise. For instance, we'll look at the entertainment industry. You look at you look at there's a lot of actors out there. They'll be like, it's a huge luck game, but a lot of times it's the way you act, the way you treat certain people, and the way you are with yourself that's going to allow you to connect with that person, that's going to allow you to connect with that other person. And so I do think there's always going to be a sense of luck. Some certain person walks into the room, but I'm a very big person now on energy, and the energy we put out into the world, the things that we do for other people and the things that we do to help our society as a community as a whole is something that's going to help push you towards the direction that you're meant to go.
Definitely. I love that. Like you mentioned, community, which is important, and the connections, which are important. And also, you mentioned the energy, because generally, as humans, we have these bad days, right? We all do. But like, we have to, even when these days come, we have to try. I don't want to fake it till you make it kind of positive way, but be at least authentic and try to be energetic towards other people and true to them. Because when they see the true self of you, they will appreciate you for that, and you will have certain kind of connection with them. Because generally in business, the way I see it, it's mainly three things to me. I don't know. I'm gonna tell you what they are, and I think you might agree. So first thing is skills and passions to solve problems. Second thing is the relationships, and it's both ways, who you know and who knows you. And it's better to be aligned with these people. It's good to know as much as you can. That's good, but if it's aligned, that's better. The third is serving and adding value to people, and you do that in multiple ways. And going to the scale, which is selling. So, how do you see that? The second one is
I mean,
important.
yeah, no, I would 100% agree with you on all those things. And I think that, there's a time as a business owner, I remember when I first started in business, I was just scraping by. I was trying to get all these, different jobs just so I could, start growing. And then I got to a point where I realized, well, maybe this mindset stuff is actually something, right? Like maybe this whole going in this energy situation is something. And I was just not ready yet to see that because it was all about the hustle and bustle. You talk a lot about value, right? I consider value very similar to our contribution pillar. Yeah, like a lot of people think when they hear about the word contribution, they're like, hey, I'm just going to go out there and help someone for free. I don't consider that at all. I consider it more like the who, right? Like you're going out there and you're contributing to a certain type of community that you feel like you can contribute to the best way you can. If you can sell value to them, there's nothing wrong with that because you know that you're putting enough heart and energy into the vision of building around that community that you're going to be able to make it to that next level because of that. And so I would say that all of your pillars, yeah, I think those are definitely 100% something that every person should take into consideration.
Yeah, because like talking here about community branding, how would you define the word community branding? Because because there might be like a personal brand, for example, and a business brand. So which one is it?
I would say, at the end of the day, I think that we all, especially in this day and age of personal branding and everyone thinking they can do it on their own, I think that there's a huge misconception there. I think that leaders are brands. They are. When you build a business, um, you're going to get to a point, and I'll just use this as an example. And I may be a little bit biased because I see this on a daily basis because I do marketing for a living, but I can tell how good the organization is and how well the leadership is just by looking at their marketing collateral. Because I look at it and I'm like, well, this person doesn't care anything about, like you said, building the vision, building a solid product around what they're doing, or communicating that product to their marketing efforts. And so I would say community branding is actually a step that you can take if you're a personal brand or you're a business brand. I like to think of it as in terms of going from a me to a we to an us. Like usually you're a one-man show. Even if you did build, a large corporation, you start off somewhere. And you are at this point where you're like, hey, like I need to start going from a to a we, which really just means I need to work with people, mostly internally, like the people that you work with, the people that you hire, your strategic partners. And I think that they need to align with me. It's back to that connection phase, right? And the values that you represent, I think, is how you can go from a me to a we. And then in us, I think just comes down to your clients. Are all three of you aligned on the brand as a whole? And those three pillars of the individual leadership roles, the rest of the team, and the clients themselves, if all those are aligned from a branding perspective, I think that that's what would be considered a community brand.
Definitely. So this is where like everyone utilize themselves to build a successful or the success that they want. Like eventually we as a business we want to continue. We are in business because we want to continue and we want profit. And people on the other side of the spectrum want services or products that are going to help them and serve them and get them to the resolution that they want from A to Z as fast as quick as possible without the overwhelm. So building this community will help them like make things easier for them, even if they know they are going to have to go through this process of things.
Yeah, and I think going back to your sales and selling value, right? What is sales? Sales is really all about getting to know another person and making sure that you guys align on the attribute. Money is really just an energy. Everyone looks at a dollar as a different value, and so it's funny when people put price tags on things because I'm like, well, someone over here may consider it this worth 20 grand, where someone over here may consider, hey, this is nothing. And so you really have to think about it in terms of like, how are you able to help somebody where when they're coming to you, I'm not saying are friends by any means, but they're actually people that you're like, hey, I could go golfing with that guy, or I can go out and have a dinner with them and their family, and we don't have to hustle and bustle and talk about business. We can just enjoy life together and also work together. And this is that by no means saying hire your friends, because I have a big thing against hiring friends, but within the business. But overall, I think that that's really what it comes down to is clients in this world of transactions and social media. It's so much easier for people to build a community. The problem is people don't use it to build a community. People use social media, Google, whatever they're using as more of a transactional type situation. Let's get on a call. You send me a scope, you show me the money, and then we work together. I don't think that's how it should be at all. It's like, let's have a conversation. What kind of animals do you have? Tell me a little bit about your family. Like, let's go, like, dig deep into your actual pain points and the actual reasons why you want to do this. Because I've seen so many clients come to me, for instance, and be like, we want social media, we want to do this, we want to do this. And I'm like, you know that you're basically getting marketing fatigue and you're doing all these things because you want to be seen and heard and noticed, when in reality you could just be doing this, this, and this, and you could be making a lot more money.
You mentioned something that about hiring friends or maybe family members.
Mhm.
So do you think that's something that's good or bad for the business, any business in general, or do you think from experience, if you had any, it's not a good idea?
I think it's a gamble. I think it can work out really well. I mean, you see someone like Alex Hermosi and Leela Hermosi, where one of them's very big on operations and one of them's very big on sales. I think that when you can find two people like that are in sync and can make it work, then I think that that's what can exponentially grow a business. Yes. But hiring friends or even employees that were like, hey, I want to hire one of my friends to come on. I feel like it's kind of an easy way out. You're not necessarily building a family within the business. You're building a team. Just because you guys value similar things and you can help each other and work with them doesn't mean they're necessarily your family, right? Like I really do feel adamant about, like, part of my shift in understanding success shifted from, oh, I need to make $1 million to, oh, now I want to make sure that my employees are learning, my employees are growing. And when you have someone that's part of your family, I think that it just, or a friend, I think it's just really easy for situations to be misconstrued from a communications perspective because of that friendship and because of that or that family member. I've seen it work. It can work, but I definitely think it's a gamble.
Yeah, I agree with you as again because eventually, like, you get to this point where sometimes it's nobody is contributing because you feel I know this person is a friend, a family member, he's not gonna contribute. So you want someone who's like eventually any employee, I guess, working for other businesses, no matter how hard they work, it's not their business. But a family member or a close friend, if they are not taking it slightly like 100% seriously, the partnership should not be happening, especially like you mentioned in your example. You want someone, if you are not good at certain part in sales or marketing, you want someone is good at that, so the business can build up with time, because you want this kind of mindset in the team that's working together, and you want the potential growth that's happening and scaling for the business. So now you talked about mindset, and this is like success is a kind of a mindset game. But why do you think that we sometimes have this idea of having all the time thinking about this zone of, like, this is a comfortable zone, I want to stay in it, I don't want to grow personally or the business? So is it something that there is a fear of it, fear of success for the business, fear of success? Some people might thinking that I can't handle the growth of the business or my personal growth.
I think that it goes back to what I originally said at the beginning of the cast, where um we talked about you have to let go of some of the things from the past to be able to move yourself forward in what you've learned, because it's a completely different way of growth. And when you really look down to it at the nitty gritty of the whole situation, I think that, I mean, business at this point. And so there's these valley of death periods that happen, I think, with every business. If it's at 200,000, if it's at a million, I mean, usually they happen multiple times, but there's this point that happens when your top line and your bottom line change. If you're a personal brand, for instance, you could be making $500,000 top line and be making a 40 to 50% profit margin because you have all these people on your team that are more delegators. You just delegate to them and they just get some work done. Where, if you wanted to make it to that next level, you have to start hiring leadership roles. And so your mindset has to be more focused on, hey, I'm okay with no longer making a 40 to 50% profit margin. I now have to make a 10% profit margin in the business. And so There's actually, I don't think anything wrong with people deciding, hey, I'm going to stay in this spectrum. This is where I choose to be. This is what I like. I want to have a business where it's just me. There's lots of people that do that. But I do think to make it to that next level, there is that fear. I went through it. I was like, oh man, like I'm making a lot of money here. I could live happily now for over 20 years and I'll be just fine if I decide to shut down the business. But being able to shift that mindset and then learn and continue to grow. I know it could take 2 to 3 to 4 years just to like make it over that hurdle. It takes a lot of mindset. It takes a lot of pivoting, changing, vision, understanding you're going to have to bring more leadership roles type people in, and that can be hard for some people. But I see it happen within every business multiple times that at least I've worked with.
Mhm. Definitely. So now, speaking of that, can you like show us or tell us a bit if you have a story about building the community around the aesthetic driven space that you have seen or work with?
Yeah. And so as of right now, is we've kind of went through our shift in part of our growth period. I had to look back myself and funny enough, the pillars that I created with the connection, contribution, and confidence side of things, like that was part of my shift. And I had to look at myself and be like, who are the people that I want to serve? Who are the people that I can bring the most value to? And for me, it was gym owners. It wasn't just the athletes, but it was more so the gym owners. They were my community. They are who got me past multiple different rebrand periods in my life. And so I would say, usually there's a spot, and this is particularly for gyms that have, type membership type services and offers aligned with what they're doing. They usually get to a spot in the business, we'll say about 500,000, which is usually between stage 2 and 3 of gym ownership, where the things that didn't work in the past don't work now. I mean, for instance, Facebook ads could have been great for validating your gym and starting to bring people in, but now you're spending all your time going from a personal trainer to being a glorified sales rep, that's just taking calls that have no conversion. And so you're basically just trading one job for another. So really having to look at yourself as a community at this point. And so we've developed a system where we have kind of ourselves said, hey, how do we get people either from stage 3 to stage 4 of gym ownership, which is 500 to a million, or gyms that are at that expansion phase where they're at 1 to 2 million and they're trying to open another location, or 2 or 3, where they're like, hey, how does our mindset need to shift? And that is really at the end of the day around community. How do you start bringing in a sustainable lead flow? And so we really focus very heavily on one, positioning, finding out who their true audience is, who are the people that you like to serve the most that come to your gym, and we position you around that in your services, so that you can start attracting much more like-minded individuals into your locations. Two is the experience share. I know when I look and I go to a gym, or anything that has some sort of retention slash membership type service, that I'm going to look at Google and I'm going to say, what is the closest thing to me? And the only two things that change my mind from going from the 1 mile away to the 1 2 to 3 to 4 miles away is that experience, that customer service, that positioning, right? And so making sure that you are providing an experience for your gym goers that really match the feeling and the vibe of why they want to come and work out at your gym to begin with. And so that's stage 2. And then step 3 of that pillar is reputation. You don't need to do a whole bunch of Facebook ads. You don't need to do a whole bunch of gimmicky marketing material anymore. Like your past validation stage right now, you need to focus on sustainability and retention. And so how do you build that within the gym environment is you really focus on your reputation management, focusing on your existing members, how they can bring like-minded people to your gym through community building efforts, if that be going to a trade fair, going to setting up a trade, a trade show in your local area, down to as simple as what we really focus on is the reputation management. How do we get you so many reviews from your existing members that it actually attracts and brings in um, like-minded individuals into your gym. And that is probably the I'm not going to say the biggest bang for gyms in general, but in companies that have a brick and mortar, biggest bang for their buck. But it definitely is something that they don't have to get marketing fatigue. They don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on ads. They can still if they want, but I've seen if you want to be a healthy gym, you need to really focus around that reputation and that those community building efforts. And so those are our three stages that we have to help gyms in stage 3 and stage 4.
Mm. That's great because I just recalled now some article or video I watched. You're speaking of positive and aligned community for the business, but the example I thought of, I think I'm not sure, but if you have seen or read the same, that Planet Fitness, I think, so a lot of a huge number of their subscribers, they subscribe for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and they don't come to the gyms, right? This is what happens usually.
Mhm.
So what they have done instead, when you go to the gym, you see these images of bodybuilders, big, huge biceps, motivational quotes, and these type of things. But I think they did the other thing, the reverse, putting things like "Don't judge me," having TVs, showing games, sports. Basically, they wanted to only attract the people who would pay the money, the subscription, and they would know that most likely that they are 90% are not going to come to the gym because they are basically these are people giving them revenue without that much of expense of using the gym. So I don't know, have you seen this example?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, there's so many. Some of those bigger box gyms. That's more of a stage 5 of being a gym owner, because at that point you have a corporate facility that has to worry about design consistency, and that in itself, yeah, you would probably bring social media ads back on, and you would be doing that stuff. But at the end of the day, that experience, Planet Fitness is a good example of. I mean, I think it's the most common example because they were so out there with how the type of market that they were going to reach on what the kind of goers they want. And I'll be honest, I mean, it's very similar to, buying, we'll just say, I'll use it because we're talking about gyms right now, like workout gloves. If I'm going to buy these workout gloves, for instance, first thing I want to think when I see these gloves, I'm like, man, I want to go to the gym today and use these gloves. If I buy a bike, I'm like, I'm going right home and I'm riding that bike. And it's the packaging and the experience of purchasing that, and the way it looks that really gives you that motivation to really push that experience. And gyms need to do that too. A lot of them look very similar, or they don't put a lot of energy into the way the experience on the inside of the gym. I mean, what is the 95% of people go to gyms for the mental health? You do have 5% that go there for just losing weight, but realistically, those people, it is a mental thing. So you need to relay your excuse me, you need to relay your experience around it. And I think Planet Fitness is a good example of a gym that found its place and said, hey, we're going to just stick in our lane. These are the types of people that we want to work with and help.
Definitely. So can you tell us about the worst advice that you have ever received?
Oh, the worst advice that I ever received. I think a very common one that I hear all the time. I think we've all heard it at least 8 times. Is when you're at a certain point, people say, "Oh, just delegate. Just delegate that out. Just delegate. Just create a process and delegate." Because as much as I delegate my stuff and I have a team now, you can't. You're going to be a business owner. You're never going to be you're never going to be 100% outside of the business, and allowing yourself to come to that realization so you can delegate more efficiently and more effectively, and becoming more of a leader and less so of a delegator, I think is key. So that's probably some of the worst advice that I've heard.
Mm, that's cool. I think delegation is important, but at the same time, I think that you are kind of like me. Sometimes, if it's like you don't feel like it's 100% how you want it, like you can't release it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the heart of a brander. That's something I personally have had to work on a lot myself, because I'm very critical over the branding and the design and the experiences that we provide for our customers. And so I'm like, that's how we have to show our stuff to our customers. But there's a time and a place, right? Sometimes I've had to learn to take a step back and be like, all right, well, like, do we really need to show this in this way right now? Or do we need to wait until we have a little bit more structure under our belts before we kind of push that direction?
mm, definitely. So, Zach, what can you tell us some kind of a resource, book, or a tool that you might find beneficial, or a book that you read?
Yeah. So, I'm very big on the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. I think that that's a great book for anyone to kind of move away from the hustle culture kind of situation and try to get more into a perseverance of learning, trying, and growing. We took that book to heart, as you can tell by our tagline for our agency. Grit and perseverance is one of our values internally, so we try to live by that on a constant basis. So I would say that was probably my first real enlightenment book that I read. I think that if there are gym owners out there that are looking to, try to make it to that next level, if they're looking to start building that sustainable lead flow, we do have a private podcast that we just released. So if you go to leavethatmark.com, it's free. So go ahead, go in there, watch that private podcast, and that training on how you can start building that community around your gym, and how you can start building that sustainable lead flow that I know most people crave for. Again, that's over at leavethatmark.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Zach, for joining me for this episode. New perspective and new insights into things and success, and how a community is the first thing that we should look after, is because you actually have to kind of give without expecting anything in return in general as humans. So thank you very much for being today with me on this episode of the Six Figure podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.